What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and on tonight's episode, I will be reviewing and recapping Severance Season 2, Episode 3, entitled Who is Alive? Before I get into it, guys, I want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave thumbs up, positive reviews, all that good stuff. You can also subscribe in all the major podcast services in audio form if you prefer. And if you like, you can follow me on social media on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys, let's get into it. So this episode, I think I like this episode not quite as much as last episode, but more than episode 1. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I still really enjoyed it. I don't know what to make of this episode, because this is one of those episodes that had a lot of weird stuff in it, weird paintings, goats. And by the way, guys, I still don't know what to make of the goats. If anyone has any good theories on what they think the goats are, please comment down below. I mentioned on a previous episode that, I know goats and the horns and everything they're kind of synonymous with satanic imagery. And I hope we don't find out that Lumen is trying to resurrect a demon or the devil or maybe Kirigan or something. I don't know. I would just find that lame. I hope there's not a real supernatural twist, but I feel like there could be. But I don't really have any great theories about the goats. It seems very random. We're also introduced, to the department that runs the goats, and they're also very strange. We'll get into them. Let's see. Oh, and then just a cliffhanger. Great cliffhanger. Very exciting. Makes me look forward to the next episode even more. A very cool development that I figured would happen eventually. I didn't necessarily think it'd happen this soon, but yeah, very cool reveal. All right, guys, let's get into the recap. So as this episode starts, Cobell is she's on hard times, lost her job, and now she's sleeping in her car for some reason. Bill truck comes by and wakes her up on the side of the highway. My question is though, Cobell, are you not saving any of the money you made? You couldn't, at least get a night at the Hotel 6 or something. You got to sleep in your car. I think you could do a little better. I'm putting that on her. Audi Marc gets dressed for work while he's looking at a photo of Gemma. And so this I found interesting. I didn't know what to make of this either, but by the end of the episode, we'll figure it out. Marc has a watch, and he's kind of carefully timing how long it takes him to get from his car, to the locker where he exchanges his stuff, and how long it takes to get down the elevator and all that. And we'll find out later why he's timing it. So Any Marc prints missing posters of Miss Casey, like a drawing, So he plans to split up with the other members of MDR and show the picture to the other departments to see if they have seen her. So him and Helly, or is it Helena? I still suspect it is Helena. They will go to find the goat people, and Irving will go to the O&D department. Irving seems somewhat nervous to go back there, his whole history with Bert and all that. But Helly comforts him. And, he says he'll go. Dylan says that he's too busy at the moment, but that he will help later. He seems very focused on his work, and he, doesn't, really want to get involved, it seems, with what the other group members are doing. So Marc tells Helly that if they find Miss Casey, the plan is to take her to the south stairwell, and then his Audi will know what to do. Uh, I don't know about that plan. Um, because, like, his Audi wouldn't know that she went out there. So his only hope, right, would be that, like, when Jenna goes outside, she becomes the Audi version of herself, and she would just naturally go back to outside Marc. I guess that's what his thought process is. Um, so Marc questions Helly if she really wants to, go through with this and help him, and she says yes. And then we get this scene where kind of, Marc, awkwardly like acts like, he wants to kiss Helly again, but it seems like he kind of chickens out and he just continues down the hallway. But they have this whole like scene in silence that's, very awkward. And it's weird too because like if it is Helena, like she almost seemed like intrigued of like if Marc would actually try to kiss her. And you almost wonder if it is Helena, would she maybe want Marc to kiss her because, maybe she, in her regular life she does feel unloved, it seems. We get a scene where Milchick seems irritated by seeing the deflated balloons from episode 1 in the hallway. So now Irving tells Dylan that he recreated the paintings that his Audi Irving was working on of the dark hallway. And he says he thinks maybe that's what his dreams have been about, the ones he has in the office where he sees the black goo, which, we know because of the end of season 1, that's the paint that his Audi Irving was using. And so he asks Dylan if he wants to help him look for the hallway. And once again, Dylan doesn't seem to want to help him. The thing is like, we're going to find out that in a minute that, Milchick, carried through his word about creating the room where Dylan can meet his outside family and all that. But like, I guess we're to assume that's why Dylan's working so diligently is because he wants that reward. I mean, I think that's about all we can assume. Like, he doesn't want to do anything that would make management cancel that. So Miss Wong shows up and asks Dylan to follow her. Okay, so this scene right here was very strange, and I don't know exactly what to make of it. So Milchick goes to his office, and he's greeted by Natalie, who is like I guess the PR woman of Lumen. He's greeted by her in an office, and she has the board on the line. And so the board, as a present, gives Milchick a series of creepy paintings where Keir is portrayed as a black man. So it's like some of the paintings we've seen in earlier episodes, but now, Keir in all the paintings is a black man. And I didn't know exactly what to make of this. And there's even a scene between Milchick and Natalie where she mentions, and she's black as well, and she mentions that they also gave her that gift, and was she was really thankful, and like she gives him like this like kind of creepy like smile, and I think the implication here is like she never knows for sure, I think, if the board is listening to her or if she's being observed in some way. So like she's playing like, playing the part, but like even she is like, you can tell, uncomfortable with this. I don't know. This almost reminded me of like the like a Michael Scott type thing, where like Prison Mike or something, there's just like a really awkward like racial like component. It was amusing, but again, I don't know exactly what we're supposed to make of it. So we get the scene where Cobell is in her car, and we get the sense she's been driving a while on this like snowy road, and eventually she stops. I think she says this sign to like a place called like Salt Neck or something, and she's like, she turns around and speeds off. So you get in our heads, the assumption is like she's going back to Lumen. In my head, I was like, oh, she's for sure gonna like take the job that she was offered, and we'll find out later that that's not exactly true. So Marc and Helly get to the goat department, and they have to crawl through like this small hallway that's full of like straw and goat poop to get to this like new goat room. And so they get there, and they're like this. It's weird visually because it's a big office room, but it actually has these like a pasture in it and like these hills for the goats to graze on and stuff. It's just interesting visual. So the man that was like in season 1, like feeding the goats like the bottle of milk, he is now dressed in an actual goat suit. Strangely enough. And so now they meet a woman, played by Gwendoline Christie from Game of Thrones. She's very on edge, and she asks them if they're like there to kill her. They ask her what this place is, and apparently this department is called Mammalians Nurturable. So now we switch over to Irving. Irving meets with Felicia at O&D, and she gives them a big hug. Back to the goat room, Marc shows Gwendoline Christie. I don't think we learn her character's name in this. He shows her the picture of Miss Casey and asks if she has seen her. And she tells him to be on his way, but he refuses until she answers his question. So she ends up like ringing like a cowbell. And this causes the other employees from her departments to show up. And they, most of them look very strange as well. They have like kind of a, I don't know, zombie almost look to them. Very strange bunch. So now we switch over to Dylan. So he's following Miss Wong, and he keeps trying to talk to her, but she won't respond to him. He's like, "Why are you like a child in this place?" And he's like, "Are you here?" I think he's asked if like she's forced to be there or something along those lines. So she takes him to what used to be the security room, which is now set up as that family room where he can, talk to the outside family. So he goes in there, and first there's a bunch of monitors that show pictures of outside Dylan with his wife, Gretchen. And then behind him is the actual Gretchen. And randomly, Miss Wong says that they get an 18-minute visit. So Gretchen mentions the name Seth, which is Milchick's real name. And Miss Wong quickly gets on the intercom. She's monitoring this whole conversation and tells her, not to reveal any sensitive information. So also, so Dylan, he doesn't know Milchick's real name. So he was just like confused, like, who, Gretchen tells Dylan that they have 3 kids together, and the outside Dylan has always had trouble keeping a job. And this is a bit of a funny scene where he's like, "What's wrong? He dumb? Is he a dick?" I think he said. Dylan gets the basically the impression that outside Dylan is a bit of a loser. He's happy when he gets to see a picture of him with his wife and kids. Back to the O&D department, Felicia tells Irving that the only time she saw Bert scared was after the first time he talked to Irving. So Irving shows Felicia a book of drawings he made of Bert. He was basically like, every day since Bert's been gone, he takes time to draw a picture of Bert. And then she's flipping through the book and she notices in the back of the book, Irving drew a picture of the dark hallway. And she asks him how he knows about the export hall. So now we know a little more about the hallway. She tells him that they used to send a lot of shipments from O&D there, but now they always just send a guy to make the deliveries. Irving asks her if she remembers where it is, and I don't believe we get an answer to that question in this episode. Back to the goat room. The goat people surround Marc and Helly, and Helly starts to ask them if they've seen Miss Casey, and he shows them the picture. The woman in charge threatens to tell Milchick on them, and Marc basically tells her, hey, if they disappeared Miss Casey, what are they going to do when they come for one of them? So Gwendoline Christie's character tells him, that they liked Miss Casey. And some of the other ones chime in too and recount having positive experiences with Miss Casey as well. And she says, as far as they know, she retired just like they said she did. But she says if they want to search for her, they will not hinder her search. Or their search of her. Before they leave, this was also very weird. They asked to see their bellies so they can check them for pouches. So this is another thing. Like season 1 mentioned that MDR were told, very strange things about people in the O&D department, and we found out vice versa was true with the O&D department. Heard very, strange things about the MDR department. So the management is definitely playing the departments against each other, which is again why in a previous episode I almost was like, are we going to find out this is just one big social experiment in some way? Back in the family room, Dylan hugs Gretchen goodbye. And then we get a quick glimpse of outside Dylan's life. He's at home with his kids. And he asks Gretchen how it went with inside Dylan. And she says it was weird, but it was good. And, I kind of theorized in the earlier episode that Milchick was lying to Dylan and he would hire an actor to pretend to be Gretchen or something like that, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. It seems legit. Okay, this development I also thought was interesting. So Natalie meets with Rickon. She tells him that she loves his book and wants to make a version of it specifically for innies because they were very receptive to it. Devin seems skeptical of her, and she's like, oh yeah, tell me again how his book ended up, being consumed by the innies. And also, what do you have to change about it? And she's like, oh, we just find the innies respond to certain language better than others. So this is interesting because they're all about control. So you got to assume the changes they would want to make to this book, would lean towards them having even more control over the innies, which is interesting. So now Devin leaves and she meets up with Marc at his house, and she tells Marc what just happened about Natalie and the book. And, he thinks it's very strange that his Annie responded so positively to the book. So they tease in this scene that Marc is working on some sort of project where he's like taping letters to a light, and we're not exactly sure yet what that is. Okay, so Milchick puts his gift, this big album of the weird Kier posters, the black version of Kier, I guess. He puts it like in a storage room, like on a top shelf. And so I don't know if we're supposed to get the idea here that, he doesn't really like it as a gift. He who, has a Kier Egan license plate on his motorcycle, maybe even thinks this is a little bit, strange. So Marc gets in his car. This was a little bit strange, I thought, because he drives somewhere and he parks, and he basically gets under a blanket with a light and he shines it in his eyes, and he times how long that image stays visible when he closes his eyes. He's like, burning the image into his retina, basically. And so now we can put two and two together. We know why he was timing his walk to work and all that before. Because, he wants to pass a message to any Marc, basically. Back at Lumen, Helena in this case, sees Cobell in the parking lot. Cobell tells her that if she wants her back, she must accommodate her needs. She tells her that she must be in charge of MDR. She needs to see Marc finish the Cold Harbor project. And she says that Milchick must go and that he's not equipped to the task, that she has to be once again floor manager. Helena tells her that she is arrogant and overestimates herself. And Cobell says that she earned everything she got, and that, she wasn't just born into it, referencing how, basically telling Helena, hey, you only got where you are because you're an Egan and nothing else, So Helena sets up a meeting with her, Cobell, and the board. But instead of going to that meeting, Cobell walks back to her car and speeds away. And, Helena's like, what are you doing? And honestly, I don't know what she's doing either. I figure she's going to come into play. So I'm wondering if maybe something will go wrong with Milchick where, like, they demote him or something, and Cobell does end up coming back. Or, maybe Cobell won't play a big part this season, and, like, it'll happen at the end of the season where, something happens to Milchick and they're like, she's like, I knew you'd take me back, or something like that. I don't know. But she'll definitely be back in some form or another. So Marc is found. This also puzzled me. So he's in the car doing his whole thing, and the doctor from season 1, I forget her name. I didn't write it down. She just kind of randomly shows up. It didn't seem like they had a prearranged meeting. It just seems like she found him. I was a little confused on how that happened, but she shows up and she tells him that burning a message into his retina won't work, because apparently there's a switch when an Audi goes down the elevator. There's a switch that makes the pupils dilate, which would get rid of any message that way. Which just shows they're very thorough at Lumen, I guess. The doctor confirms that Gemma was alive the last time she saw her at Lumen. So, now Marc has a definite confirmation that, Gemma at some point, after her quote unquote death, was at Lumen. and he asked the doctor, hey, how could you not tell me? And she says, well, we were interrupted, in season 1. But a part of me is like, some time has passed. She, ethically probably should have tracked him down and told him before now. So she tells him the only solution to his problem is through reintegration, which she claims she is much better at now. Of course, and he even mentions like, what about about Petey in season 1 and what happened to him, and she's claiming, that she's worked out the kinks. It seems like. So Marc agrees to reintegration because now he is desperate to see Gemma, and he knows that she's probably still alive. And so the big cliffhanger, the episode ends with Marc getting reintegrated and obtaining all of Marc's memories. So a very tantalizing note to go out on. I kind of feel like, if we're right, well, if the theory that Helena is posing as Helly is correct, I could see this being what eventually tips Marc off as to that being the case. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. But guys, I gotta ask, before I go, any predictions going forward, or do you have any good theories about the goats, or any of the odd stuff we saw in this episode? What did you think of the whole black paintings and all that kind of stuff? Very odd stuff in this episode, but I still very much enjoyed it. It's very intriguing, and it just week to week, a show that I very much look forward to. So with that said, I'll be back next week to review next week's episode. But guys, I think that'll do it for today. Like I said earlier, if you will, please subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher choice. Leave thumbs up, positive reviews, all the good stuff. And you can follow me on social media at Zach Jones Live on Twitter or Blue Sky, and that's ZACHJONESLIVE. But guys, until next time, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.